The opening scene features an elderly man who is fishing in a deserted lake when he hears an unusual sound from the surrounding area. Sensing the potential danger, he grabs his fishing tools and retreats. On his way back, he stumbles upon a big egg, inciting his curiosity to pick it up. However, upon turning around, he is confronted by a shocking sight of an immense dinosaur, revealing the source of the egg. The scene then cuts to 5 years later, and we're shown a laboratory facility where a team of scientists are carrying out their experiment on a crocodile. Soon after, the head scientist named Dr. Jost walks in and injects the crocodile with a modified serum in hopes of awakening its dinosaur DNA. He also starts the low-level radiation, and as a result, the crocodile's aggression escalates. In order to control the situation, Dr. Jost orders his co-worker to shoot it with a double dose of tranquilizers. After witnessing this, Dr. Jost believes that he is still missing something, so he instructs his fellow co-workers to take tissue samples of every organ and cryo-freeze the body. Afterwards, Dr. Jost grapples with stress as he's not able to find out the missing points in his experiment, and his failure could lead him to a loss of funding. In the next scene, we see a group of school children visit a museum accompanied by their teacher, who imparts information about dinosaurs and their history. Here, we are introduced to a particularly enthusiastic student named Chris, who is currently captivated by the stories of dinosaurs and the grandeur of their skeletal displays in the museum. The group moves on to explore the museum, but Chris seems to be lost in his own thoughts. Luckily, he has two friends named John and Carrie who snap him out of his dream world, bringing him back to the group. After the school field trip, Chris, along with his friends, is walking back home when Chris has his gaze on a store named World of Wonders. Intrigued by this, he asks his friends to get going while he decides to check out the store. When he enters the store, the same elderly man from the opening scene greets him, believing that Chris is probably here for the toys. He suggests that he go to some other store. Chris then makes it clear that he's not into toys and asks the old man to show him something extraordinary. Responding to Chris' curiosity, the man presents an ancient mummified cat from Egypt with a rich history. Unsatisfied, Chris asks the man to show him something that he's never seen before. The old man understands what the boy is looking for, and as a result, he brings a box in front of him. Chris asks for its price, to which the old man responds that he doesn't need any money for it as long as he promises to take the best care of the content inside the box. The boy then makes a promise to the old man before taking the box home. Back at home, Chris takes a look inside the box and discovers the same dinosaur egg that the old man found earlier. After this, Chris consults a YouTube video explaining egg hatching procedures. As per the instructions, he wraps the egg in layers of clothes, ensuring the required warmth. That evening, he has his dinner as fast as possible and even sacrifices his favorite dessert in his eagerness to witness what happens to the egg. After some time, Chris hears some sound inside the egg. As he lifts it up, the egg hatches and a baby dinosaur emerges out. This momentarily startles Chris, prompting the egg to slip from his hand. The baby dinosaur also seems scared, so it runs around, completely messing up the room before hiding under the bed. Chris tries to talk to it and also offers some candies to summon the hatching out. Shortly after, it walks out, eats up the candies, and then proceeds to eat Chris' notebook, realizing that it's hungry. Chris runs to the kitchen and brings his favorite dessert for the baby dinosaur. In a very short interval of time, they develop a bond, and Chris names the baby dinosaur Albert. The next day, Chris gets ready for school, hiding Albert within his backpack. As soon as he steps outside the door, Albert jumps out of the bag and starts making noise. At the same time, John and Carrie show up and notice the baby dinosaur. While John appears fearful, Carrie deems it very cute, inquiring about where it came from. Chris confides everything in them. Chris opts to skip school and take Albert to the same old man in the store. Upon reaching there, Chris is taken aback to see that the store name has changed. As he enters, he's greeted by an elderly woman. He asks her about the old man, but the woman claims that she's the only one who has been operating the store. Perplexed, Chris points out the old man in the picture, to which the woman discloses that he was her husband who died 5 years ago, leaving the boy stunned. Chris is now confused about what to do with Albert because it's growing rapidly. Chris visits the dinosaur museum in hopes of finding any guidance. Concurrently, Dr. Jost arrives at the museum to meet with the in-charge, who wants to help him with a new sample of a dinosaur skeleton. While Chris explores the museum, Albert leaps out from the bag and runs around the museum, afraid to be caught. Chris chases the dinosaur, asking it to get back in the bag. Meanwhile, Dr. Jost spots the baby dinosaur from the control room and rushes to capture it. Chris pursues Albert out of the museum, and both of them are followed by Dr. Jost and his guards. At one point, Chris finally manages to capture Albert, but both are intercepted by Dr. Jost, who demands the content in his bag. The boy gets frightened, prompting him to run away. On the way home, Albert starts to make noise from the bag, assuming that it's hungry. Chris heads to a nearby department store in order to purchase some food. Regardless, Chris doesn't know what he should buy for the dinosaur. Not long after, Albert peeks its head out of the bag, which is noticed by a customer's dog, causing it to bark. Albert then jumps out and begins running around the store, triggering a store-wide chase involving the dog. Chris tries to get the dinosaur back, but it soon dashes out of the store and into a car's trunk. Before Chris can get it, the car drives off. Upon returning home, the car owner opens the car trunk, only to be startled by Albert, who has now become even bigger. In a state of panic, the man rushes inside the house, grabs his shotgun, and returns to the car with an intention to shoot it. However, Albert manages to save itself and runs towards the garden. The car owner hastily calls the police, who then capture the dinosaur in a big cell. The authorities are unable to figure out the real identity of the creature, so one of the police officers calls Dr. Jost, a reptile specialist. Dr. Jost is very happy to hear this news and decides to take it for his research. Shortly after, Chris arrives at the scene and discovers the police taking Albert away. Chris then follows them to the police station, where he meets the same old man. The man tells him that the dinosaurs must be released into a jungle instead of locking it in a cage. Chris is unable to figure out how he can rescue Albert, so the old man offers to help him. Soon enough, Dr. Jost arrives with his team, who then take the dinosaur to the lab. Helpless, Chris feels sad, but the old man asserts that he knows where they're taking Albert. Following this, the old man enters a nearby house and exits from the back door in a buggy. Chris is amazed by the unique style of the buggy. The old man provides him with a helmet, and the two head towards the lab facility, which is located in the middle of the forest. On their way, they stop at a red signal where Chris notices his father. The boy hurriedly hides his face and drives away as soon as the light turns green. Chris's father is confused if he actually saw his son. However, the vehicle beeps from behind, prompting him to ignore the situation and proceed. In the meantime, Dr. Jost arrives at the facility made up of numerous tents. He gathers all of his workers and announces that he has a big surprise for all of them. He soon reveals the dinosaur, astonishing everyone there. The sight of so many staring eyes scares Albert as well. On the other hand, the old man activates the buggy's booster, causing it to accelerate beyond control. Struggling to regain control, he soon deactivates the boost and attempts to slow down, only to realize the brakes aren't working. Eventually, the buggy skids off the road, colliding with a tree and ultimately coming to a stop. Luckily, both of them step out unharmed and continue the rest of their journey on foot. After a while of walking, they reach the facility and find some armed guards at the entrance. The old man uses a failed magic trick to divert the guards' attention, leading them away in pursuit. Taking advantage of this distraction, Chris sneaks into the facility. He stealthily checks each and every tent while avoiding other guards and workers. Within a short while later, he locates the tent imprisoning Albert. The boy walks in and comes across a scientist asleep. Quietly sidestepping the slumbering scientist, Chris finally makes it to Albert, who is now a colossal dinosaur. In moments, two guards apprehend Chris, but the timely arrival of the old man allows them to overpower the guards and retrieve their keys. They release Albert from his chains, and the trio makes their way out of the tent, only to confront Dr. Jost and his workers. Albert lets out some loud roars, frightening the crowd before making a swift escape. They flee into the woods, trailed by Dr. Jost and his guards. After venturing a bit deeper into the forest, the old man stops and tells Chris that now it's time for them to depart from Albert. At first, Chris refuses to be separated from Albert, claiming that it's his responsibility to keep Albert safe. Regardless, the old man says that Albert is safe only in the forest, which is its natural habitat, so he urges the boy to let it go. Following this, Chris, with a heavy heart, bids farewell to Albert, and they finally part ways. On their way back to the town, Chris and the old man are captured by Dr. Jose and his men, who demand the dinosaur. When they refuse to divulge any information, Dr. Jose tries to subject them to a physical assault. Just then, their confrontation is interrupted by the appearance of a patrolling police car. Due to this, Dr. Jost and his team are forced to retreat back into the woods. With this, the duo heads back to the town, where they sit in front of the World of Wonder store and talk. A few moments later, John and Carrie approach Chris and ask him about Albert. Chris reveals that with his companion's help, he released the dinosaur into the forest. His friends are confused as they see no one other than Chris. Chris then gazes into the store and sees the old man, who waves goodbye to him before fading away. The movie ends with the echoing roar of Albert resonating from the depths of the forest.